Okay. Am I audible? So,
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you
yeah.
hear me?
Yes, sir. Devasith sir, I can hear you.
Okay, excellent.
So, sir, I start the introduction.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am Jaideep Rawalji, the co-coordinator of this FDP. Take the opportunity to introduce the speaker of second session, Mr. Debashish Majumdar, sir. Sir is postgraduate diploma in marketing and sales. He has 30 years of senior management experience. He is QCI, Quality Council of India certified Six Sigma Master Black Belt, and have championed many critical improvement projects. He is LMI, Leadership Management Institute certified leadership coach. His area of expertise are effective personal productivity, effective selling strategies, management of multiple functional teams, enhancing process operations, optimizing resource utilization, operational efficiencies, and business process improvement. Today, Sir is going to introduce the defined phase of Lean Six Sigma. So I request Majumdar sir to take over the session. Sir, over to you. You can share your screen, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. Yeah, let me share my screen and just confirm if you are able to see my screen. Yeah.
Yes.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir. Sir, put it on slideshow mode.
Yeah, I just put it on slideshow. Is it visible or no?
No, sir. It is not in a slideshow mode, sir. Sir, you can do one thing.
Yeah.
Uh, Stop sharing and share again. And at that time, select share your entire screen.
Okay, just 1 second. Yeah. So what do I have to do? I have to select entire screen. Okay.
Entire screen. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. And now is it visible? Hello?
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir. There is a ribbon, small ribbon. You can click on hide button. There will be a hide button. Hide. Yeah. Now it is clearly visible, sir. Thank you.
And it is on the full screen. Okay.
On the full screen, sir.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. So good morning again to all of you. And let's start this session. I think Dr. Vinod gave you an introduction of the Lean and the Six Sigma, both. And since we are calling it Lean Six Sigma, I think there are some areas where before I really jump into just define, I still strongly feel that there are some areas that we should go through very quickly and also get a feel of what are the organizational requirements, how do we do the project selection, right? What should be the team structure, etc., etc. And then I think we can get into the actual define and then the what all is included in the define. Okay, so this introduction is already done. Again, Six Sigma is what? If you look at the metrics, measure everything that results in customer satisfaction, right? And that's there is a famous saying, I think you would have heard it. In God we believe, for rest we must have data. So in Six Sigma, data is the most important thing, right? After God, we need to have data, and then only we can do any project. So Six Sigma means there has to be data. If there is no data, then you need to start collecting the data, and then only you can initiate the project or initiate that Six Sigma project. Okay. Again, for me, Six Sigma is a journey of leadership development. And why do I say quantum leaders? Because Six Sigma is supposed to give you the quantum results, right? I mean, you really don't need to get into Six Sigma. You're looking for some small improvement, right? For some small improvement, there could be some projects which you can take. You can just do some 5S, right? Some small elements and you can get into some improvements. But then what we are really talking of is some significant improvement to the organization, right? And the organization has to be flexible to accept that and to get into that journey. Always the customer is the king, customer driven, responsive. How quickly is the organization able to respond to the competition, to the technology? That is also important, right? Are we able to meet the changing requirements? Can we respond faster than the competition? So again, Six Sigma is linked to strategic, right? It is linked strategically. You have to plan tactically, and then we have to execute, right? So strategic planning, tactical planning, and operational planning are important for Six Sigma. Let's understand the concept of variation. Right, so you can see there are two scenarios which has been given to you, right? One is a landing position of airline company A, and another is a landing position of airline company B. So which one is better? If you have to buy a ticket, which is the airline that you'll buy the ticket to? And please remember, nobody has had any mishaps. They have not crossed the lower specification line or the upper specification line, or if this is the boundary, they have never gone beyond the boundary. But then which is the airline you feel you would be more confident of?
A. Sir,
Yes,
A.
absolutely. I think definitely A. But why A? Why A?
Lesser variability.
Yes, absolutely. So you can see A's landing has been more or less near the center of the line, whereas B has never had any mishap, but then it is quite spread. So the variation is important aspect. So that is something which we all need to understand if we are really getting into the Six Sigma. Yeah, right. So again, no plane has ever derailed, but still we'll prefer airline A, because the probability of derailing in airline company B is high, because it has a tendency to go towards the boundary lines. So what is a breakthrough improvement or a quantum improvement? Please understand, because Six Sigma means that we are looking for that significant improvement, right? If you're not looking for significant improvement, then we should not get into Six Sigma and go through the whole DMAC or DMAT-B process, right? We need to get into some improvement projects, and we can complete that. Yeah. So we can see Dr. Vinod would have showed you that 5 Sigma and 6 Sigma are supposed to be the world-class organizations, but you can see from moving to a 3 Sigma to 4 Sigma, it is an improvement of 11 times, and 4 Sigma to 5 Sigma is 26 times. Yeah, I think, sorry, yeah. So, and 6 Sigma is 69 times, right? So that is the improvement that we are talking of. And 6 Sigma is 3.4 defects per million opportunities. Do you think it is still good enough for some industries? Can you name any industry where even this 6 Sigma may not be good enough? 3.4 defects per million items or opportunities?
Healthcare.
Spares, mechanical spares.
Okay, no, I think, yeah, healthcare, yes, I think healthcare is fine. Anything else?
Sir, airline industries.
Absolutely, yes, airlines. I mean, you can't have 3.4 accidents of every million landings, right? Similarly, your nuclear reactors, you can't have such a mishap, right? You are using the 6 Sigma. So they have to be working at what? They have to be working at 8 Sigma or 9 Sigma. So that level has to be that high for some of the industries. But for manufacturing industries, service industries, if you reach 6 Sigma, surely it's at a global class. No doubt in that. Okay, so 6 Sigma is what? It has to be company-wide, right? It's a top driven, top leadership has to be absolutely convinced of Six Sigma, right? Anybody of you know, because since we are all talking of implementing Six Sigma, why do Six Sigma projects fail? Have you heard it anywhere? Because all of the success stories we'll be sort of discussing, Motorola, GE, right? All the success stories. But then many Six Sigma, in many organizations, Six Sigma started and it did not bring the results. Why did it fail? Anybody can guess, or anybody knows why it fails?
Readiness factor.
Readiness. What do you mean by readiness?
If the resources are not available with the company and etc. to implement this.
Okay, yeah, implementation is definitely. You are not implementing in the right way. That is one reason, surely that is one reason. But before that, as I said, Six Sigma is a top-driven approach, right? So the leadership sort of sees that, okay, 6 months of Six Sigma in the organization, I don't see the result, I don't see the impact. And he starts getting impatient. So failure of the Six Sigma majorly happens if the leadership is not convinced or tries to get results too quickly. Six Sigma sometimes may give you results in a year, 1.5 years, and it is supposed to give you what? Significant results and quantum results, not just the normal improvement. So that is something a leadership has to understand, and that is what he has to tell the whole organization also. Six Sigma also is disciplined and data driven. As I said, data is the key. After God, if we need anything, what is that? It has to be data, right? And then we go for a project by project, okay? So now organizations are get into the Six Sigma. Why? Because organizations also need to have a strategic plan. Many organizations may not have a strategic plan. Now, strategic plan is what? It's a long-term plan. Then you need to break that strategic plan into what? Tactical plan. Now, what is tactical plan? It's a bit of a mid-term plan. And that tactical plan has been broken down further into operational plan. Operational plan is the short-term plans that you're working in your day-to-day. You work on the next 3 months or 6 months horizon. So that is your operational plan. Okay. Now, if you really don't have that in the organization, so you are starting off with something which you need to create, right? You are starting your Six Sigma journey, but you don't have your plans, you don't have your strategy. That is also could be a reason that it takes longer to give you the impact, right? So focus has to be on clients and markets and on the competition, and both are linked to your strategy, right? Your strategy is to serve your customer and improve on your customer satisfaction, maybe widen the base of your customers, and how do you meet your competition, and what are the competition landscapes that is currently there or will be there in the future. And then you get into your business process improvements, Six Sigma or Lean, or a mix of Lean, Six Sigma. So this becomes strategic. You have to understand your strategic environment, and then this becomes a strategic enabler. Then the cost of quality, right? Prevention cost, appraisal cost, internal failures, external failures. Do we really know this in data? Do we have data? Do we understand these costs, right? So that is also something which organizations need to start building up or start collection of these costs. Sometimes we may not get into the financial figures of a failure, but in Six Sigma, it is important that we get into the financial figures. We work closely with your finance department in understanding what is this cost and what is, suppose you do a project and you do the improvement, then what are the savings in terms of the rupee value or a dollar value, right? So that is also important in terms of a understanding and getting these costs and understanding what are the type of failures that are happening in the organization. And in an iceberg, right, some portion is visible and but lot is hidden. Anybody? What is the portion which is visible? What is the percentage which is visible? right? This portion which is visible, but the huge chunk is below that water. So the visible is only 12 to 15%. Yeah, somebody was saying something. Okay, the visible is only 12 to 15%, right? The rest of it is below. So you can see huge aspect is hidden. So what is visible, we need to understand also what all are hidden, right? So we need to get our clarity of the iceberg for our organization, right? So you can see a lot of things are hidden and only few things are visible. So visible would be your scrap, rework, rejects, maintenance, warranty claims, and additional labor hours, because you may be paying overtime, right? And there's a bit of a warranty if you are into some organizations where you'll have to pay fines. So those things will become visible immediately. Okay, I had to pay fine to this client X amount, right? So those things become visible, but then below that, there is a lot of hidden. So here also we need to understand the visible and hidden aspects of the organization before we are getting into a Six Sigma project. Okay.
Sorry for the disturbance, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, few participants are facing that in your voice there are the echoes. Can you check for this, please, sir?
Okay, there is an echo.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then really I don't know what to do. Just one second.
Okay. Okay. Okay, sir. For rest participants, they are saying that there is no echo. You can continue, sir. Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
okay.
Hello, madam.
Yes, sir.
Some more cell phone or switched on nearby this speaker that may cause some echo.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So
Thank you.
is everybody on mute? Others, are they on mute? I think that is something which can help maybe.
Sir, all the participants are mute.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir. Please check your connectivity once. Thank you so much, sir. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, fine. Right, so very quickly, the quality gurus, because they are the ones who they did not start Six Sigma, but then the journey of the quality is, these are the huge, big names. Walter Stewart, Deming, they are the ones who, Deming went on to sort of Japan and sort of after the World War II, then Joseph Juran, Phil Crosby, and then we have the ISO Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. For India, we have the RB&Q, Ramkrishna Bajaj National Quality Award, and then the Six Sigma at the Motorola, right? And then Motorola, then the GE, and then the Lean started off with Toyota. So, but then these are the names which are extremely important, right? So then sort of Deming introduced PDCA. So there are some of the names which are quality is not free. So that concept was given. Extremely important names, but we are not getting into as to who started what, but just to give you a brief flavor of some of the gurus of the quality globally. Yeah. Let's look at some of the impacts, Motorola and the others. So some of them, Motorola has huge numbers to show. GE also, GE has become a culture. Jack Welch introduced that culture. Even suppose somebody says, I have come from GE, at least he or she will be a green belt or at least a black belt, right? So that sort of culture was GE had created. It went into business process improvement, right? So even in my ex-organization also, we followed bit of GE. We started BPI, business process improvement. We did not call it Six Sigma journey. We call it business process improvement journey. And then we also got into some of the learnings shared by GE, right? So you can see that certain big names and the big benefits, right? Which is there. So Six Sigma does give you the significant improvement or the quantum improvement that I had talked, right? Now you can see that how do you get into a sort of journey and how do you harvest the fruits, right? So you can see 3 Sigma to 4 Sigma are routine improvements, right? You use PDCA, 7 tools of quality, some bit of logic, and you can even root cause analysis, bit of Pareto, etc. And then you can really apply and get the low hanging fruits. So organizations should have done this and completed this low hanging fruits process really well and completed all these improvements before getting into the breakthrough improvements, right? 4 to 5 Sigma and then 6 Sigma is where you optimize, you follow the DMAC, right? You are following really the DMAC, and then you are getting bulk of the fruits. And on the top of the tree are the sweetest fruits, which is 6 Sigma, improved design. Here you are actually looking for designing something new, designing a new process. Here you are improving on your existing process and following the DMAC. Right, so that is something which is important in terms of the harvesting the fruits. But then please understand there are always low hanging fruits which we need to take care of, right? And using the routine improvements we need to take care of. And this is something we need to be convinced that we have had completed all these low hanging fruits and the improvement processes before embarking on this breakthrough improvement. Then Dr. Vinod also talked of the lean, right? So lean and a fat and a lean organization, very, very simple. More waste, less waste, right? High risk, low risk, and then the resources consumes more in a fat organization and consumes less in a lean organization. And there are many elements of the areas of the resources which we can track. Value added activity, VA and NVA, is something which is very, very typical to lean, but then we really need to understand what is a value added activity. Sometimes we may not fully understand that I'm doing something, but is it adding to the value added or still a NVA, but still I feel it is important, right? 3 conditions for value added activity. Customer is willing to pay, right? You are doing something extra and customer is paying you for that. Yes, becomes value added. Change, transformation, conversion is taking place. It's value added. First time right as per customer requirement is value added. Anything other than these is waste or non-value added. So in a process, if you really map it out, it becomes a part of an iceberg only. Only 12 to 15% becomes value added and the rest are non-value added. Then some of that from non-value added, you sort of can say these are really essential and can be added to the value added. But beyond that, most of the processes are majorly non-value added. And that is what we need to understand in the lean. If you're following the lean, how do we reduce that waste? Some quick differences between lean and Six Sigma, right? Lean involves all employees, right? Because you can sort of do a 2-day session and then you can ask them to get into the improvements, the Kaizen, etc. But then you have to still build up the culture, right? That is important, right? And Six Sigma may not involve all employees, right? Six Sigma is a bit of a project and you need to have data. Lean, small improvement is acceptable, but Six Sigma, breakthrough improvements is what we are looking for. Simple training to all employees. Six Sigma, I wouldn't say sophisticated training, but it's a training which goes on for some days, and you need to understand bit of the data, you need to understand bit of the statistics, you need to understand bit of the statistical software also. No formal certification of employees' competence on improving business performance, formal certification in terms of belts. But here also you do get into lean and you can certify them on the lean aspects. Have they understood the lean, different tools of the lean? Focus on waste cycle time reduction, clear definition of defect has to be there for Six Sigma, right? It does not mean product defects. Defect is something we'll get into, as you get into define, we'll understand more of the defect, yeah. Business impact is high. Lean also gives you good business impact, but business impact has to be very high for Six Sigma. No software is required. Statistical software like Minitab, Sigma Excel, or even other softwares are there. You have to use that. Improvement target may vary. Improvement target is Six Sigma. How closer you are getting to the Six Sigma, that is something which is the effort. So you need to have your baseline for your Sigma rating is done, and then you get into the journey of the Six Sigma. Right. So I think those are important. Value stream mapping is there, and improvement opportunities are identified from business strategy. Again, an important aspect. You have to have your strategic plan, long-term plans very well aligned, and so improvement opportunities can be picked up from that. Six Sigma is top-driven. Leadership has to sort of guide that this is the plan, and projects need to be taken and identified from that. It has to be linked towards the strategy. Here, from the value stream mapping, you can identify a lot of opportunities of improvement. So Lean talks of time. Everybody can be involved, employee-driven, industrial engineering, and Six Sigma, but I think it is beyond that. Lean can also be used in other sectors. Six Sigma talks of defects. There's a concept of belts, green belt, black belt, maybe the master black belts who are driving it, very senior leaders who are master black belts, and they are driving it for the organization. They have the support of the senior leadership, top-driven, and a lot of use of data and statistics. So why do you think Six Sigma plus Lean really works well, right? Because end of the day, we are calling it as a Lean Six Sigma, because sometimes even using Lean really helps you, right? You need not get into that complexity of a Six Sigma. So Six Sigma, you sort of focus on the variation of reducing the variation, right? Rework. If you're having a lot of rework, how do you eliminate rework? Process optimization, process control. Lean talks of waste elimination, standardizing, flow, customer pull, and here you can have more of a stability plus the speed, and then you can see that Six Sigma plus Lean can really give you really the impact which organizations are looking for, right? End of the day, individuals and peoples who are will be driving this concept are important, because they are the ones who are making or breaking all these changes. Yeah. So it is important that individuals are well trained, they're highly motivated, they know that this is part of their leadership journey. They know that if they do well, there are benefits and improvements in terms of promotion or increments or whatever is the organization sort of highlights. So those things are also part of it, equally important, right? The people aspect is definitely very, very important. And people have to understand that once I go through this process, once I'm able to get this game-changing results, I'm able to improve on my process, I'm able to improve on my units. I have started taking projects beyond my unit, and now I'm handling 2 or 3 units projects. Then I think the recognition has to be there from the management, and then there has to be clear structure of growth also for those who are involved in that. So that is also a very, very important aspect. The growth of Six Sigma leaders have to be slightly different from the others. Organizations also do that, because not everybody may get selected to be a green belt, not everybody will get selected to be a black belt, not everybody will maybe sort of asked to complete a master black belt and sort of start leading a team of green belts and black belts. So if you are into that journey, that means yes, you have been earmarked, they feel that you have the leadership capability, and then that is a journey which you can take also. Any questions till now, or we continue? I don't know if there are questions in the chat, because I'm not able to see the chat in this full screen. I don't know this Google Meet full screen. I'm only seeing my screen and nothing else.
There is nothing in the chat box, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So it's a problem-solving approach. Okay. right? So all of you know this y is equal to function of x's. So our outputs are y's, right, and are determined by our inputs, which is x's. So if you know enough about our x's, we can accurately predict the y, right? So suppose y is the delivery lead time, right? So it's a function of what? Resources, order entry, order volume, size, customization, equipment reliability. So it's so many parameters are there, right? Now, do we really need to work on all the x's, x1, x2, x3, x4? Maybe not. But then we really need to understand which is the critical x to control so that the y can improve and the variability reduces, and we can sort of really get the improvement. So that is what Six Sigma is all about. In terms of DMAC Six Sigma, right, it's a funneling process, right? And it's a funneling process because, again, it's the organization has to understand that what are my issues, right? And which is that I need to really sort of control, right? So you can see that in terms of defining, we may have a lot of X's and inputs, okay? And when you come to measure, we have sort of reduced it to 10 to 15. So we have a small hit list, then analyze further reduces to a screen list. Improve, we have found really critical X's, and in control, if we are controlling those X's, then more or less you have completed your journey. Sometimes, many a times from this improve, we may again need to go back to analyze and again screen some more X's so that those become critical X's, and then we control those X's, because at the end of the day, we need to see the improvement, quantum improvement, and then then only we will be successful. As I said, small improvements are not something we need to get into for a Six Sigma. Six Sigma is something, it's a process, it's a time-consuming process. The individuals have to spend a lot of time and effort. You really will not get into for small improvements. Okay, now this is an interesting slide in the sense that when do we use what? Suppose you have a problem, right? And it says, yes, you have to recognize the problem. And then, is process management exist? You have the process for that? No, then just focus on the process. Suppose the process management exists is a yes. Is the solution no? Yes, then just do it. If the solutions are not known, but the solutions are obvious, low-hanging, then just complete workout. Solutions are again not obvious, is the new production and process, then you get into DMAT V because it's a new process. And suppose it's not a new, and it is something which relates to cycle time or some issues on the process, then you can get into, if it is yes, cycle time related, you get into lean. And if it is not cycle time, there are some other aspects, then you get into a DMAC process. So again, to reach to this DMAC process, you actually go through this flow, right? And if you are smart enough, and organizations also have to be smart enough to understand that what solutions they can really do it when they need to get into a lean and when they need to get into a DMAC, then you are actually saving time of the organization and doing this process very smartly. Improvement projects and improvement process has always to be done very smartly. So this is something which you need to follow. You need to go through this iteration, solutions known, not known, what are the type of issues, then are we able to handle in this way, yes, no, then you get into a DMAC. DMAC is generally used 60 to 80% of your time in the organization, right? Very rarely we may get into a DMAT V, but then I think this define and the DMAT V was also explained by Dr. Vinod, right? So I'm not explain more on this, right? But then majority of the organizations still will be using DMAC. And in fact, from the experience also, we do use DMAC. DMAT-V also is something where you are really getting into some new design to meet customer requirements. You will get into DMAT-V, and there are some different tools also which you may use for DMAT-V. Now I think that now really we are coming into the closer to the define phase, right? So in a DMAC, we have a define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So, and then for each of the phases, there are a lot of things which are required and important: business case, project identification and prioritization, team formation, high-level process map, project charter, Kano model, VOC and CTQ, and toll gate. So as part of the define, we'll cover all these, right? And then I think somebody will take up measure, then analyze, improve, and control. So we will focus on these aspects of the define. Similarly, for DMAT-V, it starts off with a Kano model, project management tools, selection, benchmarking, CTQ, project charter, and toll gate. So a lot of elements are nearly same as DMAC, but then here it starts getting analyze, design, and verify. Here is something where it becomes very different. You get, sometimes you may get into DOE to sort of understand, then you may get into designs. Then here verify, you may get into simulations and reliability. So that is the difference. Sometimes you may use here in the measure, there's a QFD which is used, FMEA is also used, but then you may also use QFD and FMEA in this DMAC also, depending on whatever sort of the project that you are handling. So what is different with Six Sigma BPI? So you are not focusing on the internal process. You are actually, what is the customer saying? That is important, right? Focus on functions and local efficiencies. You are moving to focus on the process and the flow. Solving the same problems over and over, you are addressing the root causes and maintaining gains, right? Here you may be doing some quick fixes, but that is again part of the culture. Can you avoid the quick fixes? Can you address the root cause? And can you solve that? Focus on implementing quality checks to get it right? You may get into more of a quality checks. Here you are getting into error prevention and removing the quality checks. So that is a big difference, right? You want to remove the quality checks, and how do you prevent the error? Using gut reaction to make decisions, using data to make decisions. Reactive and undisciplined method of solving problems, disciplined approach to the improvement, non-standard and complex processes, standard and simple processes, reliance on knowledge in people said, reliance on documented and standardized work. Now, if you really go through this from this two, if you go to an organization and do some audit, you would still see that some of these from elements are still happening in big organizations also, right? Some of the gut reaction may still be, you may be using to take decisions. People may be afraid of using the data, right? Regressive and progressive, those are the organizations. Are you willing to accept data on the face value, right? Or you are sort of feel that data is not good enough. मैंने इतने साल से I have used my decision making and it will continue. Do some people sort of have all the knowledge and they are not willing to pass it on? That happens in many organizations. Can you work and sort of move to the documented and standardized work, right? So if you see, organizations may be into both these parameters, right? From and to, it could be a mix of both, but if some organizations are all into these two, then definitely they are a world-class organization. They are doing setting some standards which the other organizations will be aspiring to follow. But you go to any audit, it will be a mix of both these two, right? So this is something which, if we are getting into organization, for our own organization, we can do this audit. and find out where are we, and then we can start making the changes in a very step manner, right? Nothing haphazard. We have to sort of use this approach in a very organized way. And when do you call a company a Six Sigma company? Generally, we don't call a company a Six Sigma company, right? But there are some parameters where we feel they are following some of the elements of the Six Sigma approach, right? 20 to 30% of the bottom line coming from Six Sigma projects, right? So you have improvements coming and you are using Six Sigma projects. Population, 5 to 10% of the population are either black belts and master black belts. 40 to 50% of the population are green belts. So that is the culture, right? Right? You're sort of culturally oriented towards the Six Sigma journey. All the HOD are champions, right? You need to be championing projects, right? Champions will get into the different roles also. Everybody has a role to play. A green belt, a black belt, master black belt, champions, all have a role to play. A stream of projects are in pipeline. Again, a great sign of an organization if they have projects in pipeline, right? So that means what? That means they have understood that what sort of projects they need to take to meet their strategy, to meet their tactical plans, and to meet their operational plans. They have prioritized on the projects, and that is why they have projects in the pipeline. HR policies are aligned with Six Sigma deployment. As I said, Six Sigma is a leadership journey, and then HR policies has to be aligned because you have to give that individual who is a green belt, black belt, or a master black belt, you have to give him that push in the leadership journey ahead for the others who are not green belt, black belt, and master black belt. So that is something which the organization has to have it as part of their policy. Six Sigma performance is reported to all the stakeholders, right? All the stakeholders have a say and they are interested in understanding as to what is going well and what is not going well. Six Sigma efforts are self-sustaining without external help, right? Initially, most of the organizations need external help because you do not know about this journey, right? You have to create your green belts, black belts, master black belts. Then after that, your black belts, master black belts will be sort of training others who are sort of internally also can be groomed to be green belts, right? So that is something which we need to understand, that what external help we need to take and what is that we will do internally. Now for some training, we may take external help, and for certification, we may take external help. But after that, project identification and project completion is something which we can complete in our internal elements also. And do you have the expertise to spread Six Sigma culture to your suppliers and customers and insist on being Six Sigma companies? Or again, I would say insist on getting into the Six Sigma culture, right? So that means once you have convinced that you are getting the results, then you can ask your supplier, please get into this journey. You can ask the customers to understand about the journey, and you can sort of tell them that this is what can give you the benefit. The other aspect which is extremely important is on the leadership team, roles and responsibility. As I said, we have heard success stories, and there are some big names and organizations like Motorola, GE, Wipro and the others. Reliance also is hugely into Six Sigma. So we have heard success stories from these organizations. But then if the roles and responsibility is not understood, then your Six Sigma will not work. You have to organize for it, right? You have to organize for it. And then it has to be alignment with the strategic priorities. I've been mentioning it again and again. It has to be alignment with your strategic priorities, and strategic priorities are always your long-term goals. Leadership involvement has to be there, and leadership has to be from the senior management team. And you need to have access to experts, and you have to be driven by strong leaders, because Six Sigma sometimes may not give you the results immediately. And there you need to have strong leaders, champions, and seniors who knows that yes, this is something which will give us results, if not immediate, but after some point of time, right? So that is the role of a champion and senior leadership, to sort of help and support, or rather than stop the journey. Yeah. So improvements don't just happen, it has to be structured and organized, and a whole organization or a structure has to be created, and it has to be driven very well with all the conviction that this is going to give you results. So basically, this is a structure which organizations do have, right? You have an executive steering committee, and within that there are champions and master black belts. Master black belts, you can see, are quite senior in the leadership, right? So champion may be sort of championing some projects, right? So there are project owners and project leaders, and master black belt is sort of having a team of black belts and green belts, right? So it can be a mix, like a green belt can support a project leader and it can be championed by somebody, or a master black belt can also be a champion, and within that he is he has a team of black belts, and then black belts have a green belts, and a lot of support is given to the champion, and there is a BPI head or executive team leadership who is driving this across. Now when this Six Sigma starts, I mean, we need to take a decision. Do we drive it across the organization, or do we start in one unit of the organization, or do we start in one or two or three departments of the organization, see the impact, and then roll it or spread it, right? So that is also a decision which has to be taken as part of the senior leadership. Champion has to remove the roadblocks, right? Sometimes process owner also acts as the champion. So if I have sort of leading a process, so I may be championing a project which is under the purview of me only, right? So then I'm also sort of acting as the process owner. Project leader is either green belt, black belt, or the process owner, right? So they need to understand the Six Sigma phases. Process owner is this sort of understands the process, then only he is the process owner, right? So what would happen is that sometimes the process owner may be aided by a green belt, and sometimes it may also happen the process owner will be trained to be a green belt. So then he is or she is a green belt as well as the process owner, and then they have a champion. So this is the flexibility can always happen. And then the team members, some of it may be trained in Six Sigma, some of them may not be trained, but they will be helping the process owner in the data analysis or data collection and trying, because they are the ones who are working in the process day in, day out. So they know the process better and they can help in the data collection. And you always can have extended team members, because sometimes the projects can be cross-functional, right? Projects can be cross-functional because when you sort of see that this is the improvement, then you may look for team members from other departments also, right? So that is something, and that is where the success of a Six Sigma projects become very important, because extended team members should also be fully involved. Are they trained on green belt or black belt? May or may not happen, but then the involvement has to be there. And if the involvement is there, that means we need to be sort of telling them as part of the HR policy, since they are involved as part of the project, what are the benefits if this project becomes a success and the organization sees the improvements, or there are huge savings depending on the project, right? It could be savings, it could be productivity, whatever it is, improved customer satisfaction, timelines, etc., etc. And then there has to be something for the team members also, apart from the process owners. So that is also something which has to be understood by HR and the leadership, and it has to be spelled out very clearly for success in the organization. Now, what is the roles and responsibilities of executive committee? There has to be a sense of urgency and clear priorities has to be given. Overall progress of Six Sigma is something which the executive steering committee is sort of reviewing, and this is something as part of the important aspect. If the senior is involved in the progress of Six Sigma, your projects will be successful. If the senior stops getting involved and does not encourage and motivate teams, then the Six Sigma projects will take longer, and after some point of time, you may not see the results which you are looking for. So extremely important, the senior leadership and the executive committee has a huge role to play in sort of creating the environment. The environment is extremely important for the success. For champion, yes, because he is leading one of the projects. Within it, some of the projects are being sort of driven, so he has to remove the roadblocks. Sometimes he has to talk to other departments, sometimes he has to talk to within the team, sometimes he has to talk within the belts, green belt or a black belt, and then he has to remove the roadblocks, and he has to attend toll gate reviews. Again, extremely important element of the champion. He has to attend toll gate reviews and provide feedback. Feedback is again most important element. If you're not providing the feedback, you're not giving the right suggestions, again things will be slowing down. The tendency of a project being slowed down because some of the team members are active, some of the team members are not active, some of the extended team members are supporting, some of the extended team members are not supporting. Some of the green belts are proactive, some of them are not proactive. This is something which has to be reviewed by champion. In terms of the process owner, he has to manage department resources so that team members can dedicate time to their project. Please understand that when you become part of it, when you are sort of becoming a process owner and within that you have a team, the team may sort of always come and say, okay, this is my day-to-day work. I am already bogged into this 6 to 8 hours of work. From where do I get time to work on these projects? So that is something which you have to resolve as a process owner, right? Then you have to sort of attend team meetings. You are accountable for implementation of the process improvements. You are monitoring, and sometimes the process owner could also be a champion, which is fine. You could also be a project leader. Then comes the role of a master black belt and black belt. Now, depending on the maturity of the organization, right? You have started on a Six Sigma journey, so naturally, initially you would have green belts. Then from those green belts, you would be selecting some individuals to be black belts. And after some point of time, some black belts may move on to become master black belts, right? So it's a huge role because they are the change agents and leaders who are driving big projects and initiatives. So they are taking accountability for projects across the organization, across different units, across different facilities, right? So that is what would be the role of a master black belt and black belt. And they would be within that, they would be handling a lot of projects. Master black belt may be accountable for 5, 6, 7 projects. Black belt may be also leading green belts into 2 to 3 or 4 projects, right? So they are co-chairing. So coaching and mentoring are something extremely important responsibility for master black belt and black belts, right? And you are leading complex cross-functional projects. And projects become complex because if you have too many departments are involved, you're working across different functions, it becomes complex because end of the day, human element and human nature is involved. So you need to sort that and you need to solve that and get the human support which is required. Green belts, here it is mentioned as part-time. Sometimes green belts may also be full-time. And you are leading some very specific projects, right? You are accountable for specific project execution and results. You are working very closely with the other team members in driving the success of the project. You are also going to maybe the champion if you are getting stuck, and you may also go to your black belt for further advice, and you also may sort of link up to a champion or a process owner for removing the roadblocks. So you have a role to play. At least you have to highlight what is that is stopping the success of a project, or what is leading to delay of the project. That is something a green belt has to highlight and sort of do that. Then the core team members, right? Every project will have some very team members. Without the team members, no project is successful, right? And some of them may be process experts, some of them may be subject matter experts, so they have to participate in the improvement projects. They are accountable for some areas of improvement in that project. They're accountable for some data collection. They have to see to it that whatever data is required, whatever process improvement is happening, whichever phase you may be in, that is happening, and they are supporting that, right? And end of the day, once you have seen the improvement, you have seen the gains, it has to be sustained, right? Again, as part of Six Sigma, why does it fail? Some Six Sigma projects fail because you get to the improvement, but then after some point of time, you are not able to sustain the improvement. The curve comes down. I mean, that is something which organizations have to learn, how sort of the curve should not come down. In fact, you should be ready with some other improvements so that that process improves further, right? So Six Sigma is again something, if you improve but you're not able to sustain, then again it's not as successful for the long term. Now you have heard of this RACI matrix, right? Responsible, accountable, consultant, or to be consulted, and informed. So you can see that the executive, sponsor, champion, counsel, process owner, master black belt, green belt have all different aspects of RACI, right? So let us take a case of a green belt, right? So selection projects he is only getting informed, but achieving results he is accountable. Okay, black belt, right? He is getting informed on the policies, some of the policies. So the senior leadership is setting up policies, and black belt is getting informed. Selection of projects, black belt is getting informed, but project responsibility, achieving results, black belt is responsible, and he's accountable for coaching and mentoring of the green belts. So in this way, this RACI matrix also gives you a feel and a flavor of each role and what all you need to be doing. So if this is also quite clear and this is laid down well, then also Six Sigma will be successful in your organization or wherever you are implementing. Working as one team, extremely important, right? Operational excellence requires boundaryless collaboration, right? Department A, B, C, different units, data collection. You should not be hiding data. You should be confident of the data you are sharing. And so that is the culture, right? If you have been sharing data, you're confident of the data, then it becomes boundaryless. If you're not confident of the data, you want to hide data, then it becomes complicated, right? And then that's where all these human issues start coming, all these collaboration issues starts coming, and then the time takes longer to resolve and then get into the final results. I also thought that since I've been mentioning about strategic deployment, so let me show you one slide of the strategic deployment, because you are starting Six Sigma, your strategy has to be very well aligned. Without strategy, you are starting Six Sigma, that means it is a half-baked cookie, right? It is not fully aligned to what is really required for a successful Six Sigma implementation. So you can see in the strategic deployment of the goals, right? This is all are critical considerations. Please understand, all of them are critical considerations and not stand alone, right? So lot of thing is culture plays a huge role in the success of the organization. So one has to understand your strategic plan. One also has to understand in terms of culture, where is the organization? Is the culture open? Is the culture willing to accept the change? Six Sigma also brings in change. Is the culture open to change? Will there be resistance, right? So that means you have to handle that resistance also, right? Will people be sort of are self-motivated to work as green belts and master black belts and do also their regular work and get into this journey of improvement, right? So those lot of things are there. I mean, are you willing to share data? Are you doing data collection? Are your KPIs fully aligned? Have you understand and sort of developed KPIs which is helping your organization, or you still have KPIs which is just there for the sake of it and doesn't help the organization to grow, or KPIs are only for the senior, to be given to the senior management and no action is being taken on those KPIs. So those are part of the culture, right? So that is also an important aspect of the success of Six Sigma. So resource availability, we have already talked of it. Funding limitation. So before you are starting Six Sigma journey, there has to be a budget created for Six Sigma journey. So that you can't say after some months or a year, we did not budget or we don't have the fund. I mean, that would be a something whole disservice to this whole journey. Competitive pressures, there are too much of competitive pressures and you again derail from your Six Sigma journey. Six Sigma is supposed to help you to handle the competition, but then you are not following that process through and through. Because understanding of your process capabilities, organizational capabilities, sort and pest analysis, stakeholder inputs, baseline performance, right? So this sort and the pest analysis, I think everybody of you know, right? What is SWOT? SWOT? Anybody? What is SWOT?
Hello.
Yeah,
Strength, weakness,
Strength, weakness.
opportunities, and threat analysis.
absolutely. And do you do it for your organization? Are you doing it for your department or organization?
No, sir.
Okay.
Since we are in educational institution, this is not being
No,
followed.
but it is applicable for all. Even for educational institutions, it is applicable.
Yes, sir. We teach to our students, but really we have not yet practiced it, sir.
Right, right. So strength and weakness is what? Is internal. And opportunities or threat are external. So if you do this analysis every 6 months, this is again linked to your strategic deployment, linked to your growth of the organization, linked to your culture also. So that is why this is something which is strongly recommended as part of the deployment also. Then who has heard of PEST or PESTLE? What is this PEST or PESTLE? Anybody?
So there are answers in the chat box. There are few
Okay.
answers.
Okay, I think let me
The
see.
answer, yeah.
Let me see the chat box then.
Sir, I can read the answer.
Okay, because if I go through the chat box, then I'm
Yeah.
coming out of my sharing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it is political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors.
Right, absolutely, absolutely right. Yes. Yeah. So PESTLE is political, economics, social, technology, environmental, and legal, and then environmental. So absolutely right. So whoever has mentioned it, I mean, are you doing it for your organization? PESTLE is all external factors. It is to give you a feel of what all changes can happen, but are you doing pestle analysis in 6 monthly or a yearly exercise or some sort of exercise in that way?
Actually, no, sir. I just gone through that a few weeks back only, sir.
Okay, fine. Yeah, so this is something again all external, right? SORT has internal and external, but pestle is all external. Now it depends on which industry you are in, and depends on, suppose you are in an industry where pollution, right, where environment regulations may come and become stricter and it can impact you, right? So are you ready for that? Or the technology change can happen and then again you may be caught on the back foot. Are you ready for that? Or the political scenario may sort of change and they may say, like an example, very simple example of plastic of some microns were banned, right? Plastic bags of this size of microns, if it is less than this, are banned, etc. And that immediately would have impacted so many factories who are making those plastic bags, right? So that was a political decision for the environment. So it is linked to that. So I mean, are you ready for that sort of change if those things happen? So that is why, again, before you are starting off your Six Sigma journey, you need to be ready with some bit of your strategy and the environment related issues also, right? So that is again a sign of the organization where you need to know, can something hit me after 6 months? Is there some probability of, and what do I need to do? And so that is something you need to be ready for. Similarly, Hoshin Kanri is another example of where you get into your strategic deployment. Hoshin Kanri, very famous name. It is supposed to give you direction, focus, alignment. It also follows a bit of PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act, but it's an extended form. It uses SORT, it uses PEST also, but it's an extended form of the organizational deployment. So I thought that I will just mention SORT, PESTLE, and Hoshin Kanri. These are something which we sort of discuss in detail if we are getting into a master black belt role, right? But I just thought maybe it is good to tell you, and you can do some extra reading on these aspects. It will only help you. Yeah. Next is your project selection, right? You are getting into a Six Sigma journey, and then if your project selection and the strategic context is not there, again, can lead to failures, right? Some projects will be successful and some projects will not give you the results because it is not linked to your organizational strategy or your operational plan or your tactical plan. But then improvement ideas has to come from majorly from where? First of all your improvement ideas has to come from your customers. For me, VOC is the most important. Then the voice of the process will also throw some of the improvement opportunities, right? Then something on the competition, something on the cost will also throw you areas of improvement, right? So customer complaint and feedback systems, competitive strategies, business suggestion boxes. Even suggestion boxes are for your employees, okay? Even employees can give you great suggestions, right? So that is something which you can implement. Process escapes means you are falling into this process escape every month. Something or the other happens and you are doing again, you're not getting into the root cause, you're not fixing it, but you are somehow managing it on a month-to-month basis. Risk assessment are you doing? Observations, existing project pipelines or backlogs. Now you are in a good position where you have projects, but then you are not able to deliver. Process evaluations, cost of work, quality evaluations, voice of the customer. So these are all excellent opportunity improvements which can sort of give you which projects you need to take. But then for that, you need to have a system. Do you have a system of good data collection in terms of your customer complaint. I mean, you may have a CRM and it may be getting registered, but if you look at that, what is the customer complaining? Maybe it's a text of 50, 60 words. And what do you do with that 50 to 60 words of that text complaint? Are you analyzing it further? Are you able to categorize those complaints? Right? So that is also something which you need to understand. Do you have good data for all these type of complaints? Are you analyzing it regularly? From that only you can pick up the projects better. So again, what is important? Understanding all this is important, but a repository of where you are keeping it, repository of that further analysis, segregation is also equally important. Then you are more or less ready to identify the opportunities and you can pick up, you can prioritize, and then you can pick up. So Six Sigma project is what? There is a problem, right? And you are addressing some defects or cycle time. It fits into a DMAC or a DMAT-B, right? Process first, then technology. Don't jump into technology to solve, and it impacts client EBITDA revenue, right? Is aligned with strategy. I think this word has been repeated many, many times. And Six Sigma is what? If the solution is known, please do not get into Six Sigma. It is not a tool implementation. It is not about automation. If it is no impact, significant impact, Six Sigma is not to be used. And also Six Sigma is sometimes there is a lot of tendency in us to do projects on the other department. उस department का problem है, issues है. If I solve it, then my department will sort of be better. So that is also something you have to avoid. Don't jump and take projects from other departments. Okay. So this is again top-down approach. You know your business plan, operating plan, and then you get into potential projects. And also what is happening is your problems, errors, customers' feedback, inefficient system, process breakdown is also leading you to projects. So both these are giving you potential projects. Good organizations, bigger organizations have a whole potential projects pipeline. So the pipeline of projects is already created and they know that which projects to be taken in what phases. Sometimes you can also use a balanced scorecard method to identify projects, right? So if it is meeting all these values, long-term strategy goals, and the SWOT analysis, then you have the short-term strategy goals, and then you can get into a projects. It could be customer related goals, it could be employee related, shareholder related, process related, and these can get into your Six Sigma projects. So there are methods too where, but then again, you need to have good data. You need to have that data updated quite regularly so that when you are looking at it and studying at it, decision making becomes very easy. Prioritization becomes very easy. Right, okay. So there are some criteria to prioritize the project, right? So you can give the weightage in terms of impact of business, customer impact, investment, completion, team support, data availability, benefit, right? Now data is not available, needs to be collected, data already available, and it is in analyzable form. Benefit, huge benefit. So you can give weightage and then decide on the prioritization, right? So that is also something which can makes it more structured, because at the end of the day you are getting into Six Sigma and you have to use some weightage, rating, some bit of data to sort of make it more structured, and even the prioritization has to be done in a systematic way. So this is one example of the prioritization which has been given, right? This is a project, this is the department lead. So a lot of all the departments have taken projects, and here you have started giving the weightage, right? And then this is the what are the impacts, right? And then you get into it. So you can see that benefit in terms of dollar is also important. And then you get into overall score. Multiplying into these weightages, you get into overall score. So you can pick up at least from this 6, 7, you can easily pick up your top 3 or 4, and it has been done in a very structured way. Okay, so this I think I can skip, not required. Yeah. So again, as I mentioned, KPIs are important, right? And KPIs at the business level, KPIs at the function level, KPIs at the process level. If these are really linked, then your project selection can happen with the, so each project should at least one KPI at the business level. So whatever project you are taking, is it impacting to your bigger why or to the bigger picture of the organization? So that is something which is very important to know. So the big why could be the client satisfaction, EBITDA, revenue, right? Within that, what could be the little whys? Increase employee satisfaction, reduce cost, provide more value to clients. And what are the X? Increase speed, improve quality, free capacity, and further it sort of focus projects are what? Reduce waste and cycle time, reduce variation and defects from these processes. Then these has to lead to results. So end of the day, all this has to go to your big why. And you are also sort of understanding that from this big why, currently what is important, this why is in little why of employee satisfaction is important, then which X's are important, and then you get into a project. So it's all, first of all, you need to really understand what is the big whys, then you get down to your X's. Another example of your big whys and the little whys and the X's, right? So client satisfaction, EBITDA, then within the X's, you have planning process, manufacturing, laboratory, and within that, you have sort of getting into the vital few projects, right? So the X's, you are picking up the vital few X's, which are leading to the Y's. Right, I think this is something which we have already sort of understood. So project derailers, right? We need to understand, never start a project on anecdotal or circumstantial information, right? So data is important. Base your decision on data and analysis, and always start with a value stream map or a decision tree to understand about the depth of the problem, right? So this is extremely important. Even if the senior is saying you start the project on this, but then if you have the data is not showing otherwise, you have to go back to the senior and say that this is a project which doesn't add up, the data is showing something else. So I think this to be avoided, right? And this some of it to be followed, then I think we are more or less ready for the define phase. So I thought that I will just give you a preview of what all elements are there before we start getting into the define phase of a Six Sigma, right? So before starting on the Six Sigma, there are so many elements which you need to understand, which you need to be ready as an organization. Depending on where you are in a leadership role, you have to play your role in that way. Okay, now let's start off with the define. Now define is what? Defining the big why. So what are we defining? So in DMAC, D is for define, right? And we are defining. Okay, any questions till now? Or anything in the chat?
No, sir, there is no any question in the chat box.
Okay, fine, perfect. Yeah. So now we are defining the problem, right? And then within that definition of the problem, right, we will follow a very structured approach of
one small query, if you
yeah
before interruption. One small query, sir. During the discussion related to what is Six Sigma and what is Six Sigma is not. So it impacts client, you said, and then one term that you used, which is abbreviated in form EBITDA. So I just want to understand.
Okay, EBITDA. Yeah.
EBITDA. Yeah.
Yeah, EBITDA is a financial term, right? So it is like it is your profit before tax or profit after tax. So that is the, you can say, is the EBITDA. Because
Okay.
organizations, yeah, so the organizations are looking at the revenue before tax, after tax. So that they use EBITDA in that way. Okay, is that clear? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the define is what is the problem, and if we are able to define the problem, then I think the rest of the phases will go very well. If we are not defining the problem, we don't understand the pain, right? Pain is the right word, please understand. Unless we understand the pain, then we'll not even be able to sort of write the sort of what is the project goal and what is the define of that why purpose of the project. So if you know the problem, understand the pain, then the define phase is well done, and the rest of the phases will also be successful. Okay. So we define the project purpose, create the project charter and plan. So in the project charter, we need to sort of highlight the pain, determine scope and goals, right? We need to be very sure of the scope. We are not there to sort of make a change to the whole world. We are sort of working for our department or for a unit within a process. That is what we are defining. Identify voice of the customer. Develop project CTQs critical to quality, and there is a CTQ specification table and project communication. Again, there will be a project communication, there will be a toll gate review, right? So this is important because champion support, senior support, you sort of do it with using the toll gate review. You have to see to it that champions are attending the toll gate review. In organizations, if champions are not attending toll gate review, that means Six Sigma projects will be going slow because your senior leadership is not involved. So what is the deliverable? We need to have an approved project charter, right? And this is the approved project charter with the senior leadership, and the champion has to sign off, sometimes physically sign off. Then we are get into what is the SIPOC, voice of customer, CTQ, critical to quality, Kano model, understanding Kano model, how does it link to the voice customer, focus problem statement, and the defined phase, toll gate review. So this is something which will follow as part of the define. Yeah. So some of these are the common tools. Okay, I think high level VSM was explained right in the previous session, and I think quite a few examples were given. We will get into this project charter because I feel all these elements of the project charter are extremely sort of important, and it takes time to create the project charter. Okay, so it is important to understand what is this project charter and what is that we'll be working on. Then the project benefits, right? What benefits to the client or to the business? There is a you can see in the benefit type, there is a hard benefit, soft benefit, other benefits. Some of the benefits may not be easy to measure, but the finance is, if you want this project to be gratified by your finance, then you need to get into hard benefits. Okay. Soft benefits is something which you can discuss with your champion and with your leadership, but finance will be looking for the hard benefits. And then if the finance agrees to the hard benefits, then that benefits or dollar and rupee figures can be published also. You can confidently say, my project has saved this, or my project has sort of given so much of this to the organization, right? But that is something which has to be done with the finance. You need to get that ratification. You need to have your workings very clear and you need to submit that to the finance. And then the milestones also are important, right? There are some dates in the defined phase which you need to really put. When will your defined phase be completed? When you will start, measure, complete that, then analyze, improve, and control. So there has to be some dates. Projects ideally, depending on the complexity, it should be over in maybe 3 months, 4 months, maximum 6 months, right? Any projects beyond that means it is too complex a project and it should be broken down. So 3 to 6 months is a good time for a project to be completed, right from define to control. Then the VOC collection, right? How do you collect your VOC? Voice of customer, voice of business. You can use affinity diagram. We'll sort of discuss that. Then we get into a CTQ tree. And then what is a Kano model? What is a satisfier? What is a dissatisfied? What would be a delighter for your customer? I mean, does it fit for your project? What are the elements that you can sort of pick up from your Kano model? That is also something which will have sort of in more details. Yeah. So define, you have to create a project charter. You have to map the high sort of level value stream, right? And then you have to prioritize the CTQs, right? So we'll go one by one into all of these, but then this is, you can say, are the 3 elements of the define. Project charter, SIPOC, we will use SIPOC to create a sort of value stream or a sort of the process, and we'll prioritize the CTQs. We start off with the project charter. So you will not get anywhere if you don't know where you are going. So it is, project charter is clear, clarity, what is expected of the team, what is expected of the project, is it aligned to your business priorities, right? And it is created by the master black belt or a green belt with the input for champions, right? Is it smart? Are your goals smart? You have to see to it, are they following this specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely, right? Then this project charter has general information which will show in the subsequent slides, but then the goals have to be smart. It has to be linked to the business priorities. The pain has to be understood as part of the project charter, and it has to be very clearly, the team, there has to be no ambiguity. The team has to understand that, yes, this is what we are working on, and this is the scope. These are the boundaries of this project. A project charter is a live document. Please understand that you will create the first project charter. You will give a lot of thought on creating the first project charter, but that does not mean that you stop looking at it. It is a live document, and sometimes you may start off with something where you may not have all the data, right? You have some data and you have used that data, and then you are sort of put that as part of the charter. After you moved on to analyze, you have some good data, and then you can correct that data figure into this project charter also, because you have analyzed further and now you feel confident that this is the data figure to be used. So project charter is a live document, and it will change over the initial phases of the project, right? So this is extremely important. Sometimes we feel that once we have written the project charter, it's freezed, and then we need not go back again. You need to go back again and refer to this project charter again and again. It will be a live document, right? So this is the project charter template. Different organizations do have different templates, but we feel that this is a very good template, right? Now, if you study templates, you search for templates in the internet, you will find organizations have devised their own templates, but then we feel that this is a good template to be used. First is the problem statement, right? The 4 quadrants are there: problem statement, goal statement, project scope, and the business case and financial impact, right? So now let's go one by one. Problem statement. What is the problem? Where is the pain? How big is the problem? What is the impact of the problem? So there has to be a bit of data, right? How big is the problem? Your frequency and magnitude. Unless you have some bit of data, then you will not be able to write this, how big is the problem. So there has to be a bit of a data collection. If you have data, please use it. If you don't have data, start collecting the data, right? So that is on the problem statement. Goal statement. Goals have to be smart always. What is the team trying to accomplish? What is the current level of the problem? Again, you need to have some data to tell, this is my current problem. What measurable target is the team working towards? What is the improvement from a 2.5 sigma? Are you moving to a 4 sigma, or what is that sigma that you are trying to get into? When is the project scheduled to be completed? So timeline. Project scope. What does the project include? What is outside of the project scope? Again, extremely important. You cannot take a project which is too big, beyond your control, involving a lot of departments. That is supposed to be bound to be a failure. So that is why the scoping is important. Then the business case and the financial impact, right? Why is the project worth doing? What is the financial impact? What are the consequences of not doing the project? Suppose I don't do this project, will there be any impact? Six Sigma projects, you are taking a Six Sigma project because you don't know the solution, and there has to be a high impact, right? So that is very clear. Otherwise, don't get into this project charter at all. And what is the impact? How does the project roll up to the big whys? That's what we saw. Big whys is your strategy related issues, and what is the impact on external customers. So this is something which you need to understand, and you need to spend time on getting this data, getting the information, and then only you can create a problem statement. Right, so project charter is further, this is the second, right? After this is the first, and then this is the second. Customers, internal customer, external customer. Then there has to be some defects and metrics definition. CDQ measurement, defect operational definition, baseline and its period, right? When was this data collected? Last 6 months, last 9 months, last 3 months? Some bit of baseline and its period is something which you have to mention, yeah? Then the project team. Who is the champion, owner, black belt team leader, or a green belt? Do you have a master black belt mentor? Some of it in some organizations will be there, or some it may not be there, right? MBB mentor may not be there in all organizations. Core team members and extended team stakeholders if required. Then the milestones, plan date, actual date for all the 5 phases. And then finally is the approval. Project leader's name and sign, champion's name and sign, master black belt and black belt signature, and financial representative. So again, important. Who is the financial representative from your finance department who will ratify if you are showing some savings in terms of dollars and rupees, right? So there has to be a name there. MBB black belt signature. If you are taking external help and they have master black belt and black belt, they can also sign it in that. Now some of it projects may start with some external help also. It is not that within your organization everybody will be there or everybody is ready to start a project. You may have taken external help and you have started on this journey. So you'll be getting, they may be the master black belt or black belt will be supporting you externally also. Any questions on this template, charter template? I think it's quite clear, I think, but a lot of details are there. The problem statement, there are some to-dos in terms of the problem statement. You have to be specific, avoid ambiguity, right? Don't say some quality, responsiveness, productivity will improve, right? You have to be specific, quantify the problem. So you need to have some data to quantify when, how much, how long, how often, what direction, till what time. State the effect and pain, most important. State explicitly the effect the problem is having on the customer. How customers are affected or impacted, right? Should not imply a cause. Avoid expression, because of this is happening, right? So then you're already getting into a solutioning. So you need not do a Six Sigma project. Should not imply a solution. Again, I feel that this lack of will sort of lead to this. So no cause, no solution. It has to be, once you do the project, all this has to be backed with data. All this has to be backed with statistics. The cause and solutions are not to be sort of hinted right in the beginning. If you may have some idea, you have to back it up with data, back it up with the data collection in your measure and analyze phase. So let's have an example of a problem statement. This is, the left half is not a good problem statement. The right one is a well-defined problem statement. So let's read this problem statement, which is not good or poorly defined problem statement. The system constantly fails. The power system for the corporate mainframe fails too often. During the past year, the power system for the Unix mainframe has failed 8 times, paralyzing the entire corporate information system and causing thousands of hours of rework. What it says, it's a poorly defined problem statement, generic in nature, does not highlight the magnitude or the impact of the issue at hand. Now the same thing during the past 12 months, when, right? The power system of the Unix mainframe, where, has failed. So what happened? Failure. How many times? 8 times. In all outages, both customer service, trouble ticket, and service tracking systems were down for the entire duration of the outage. This has resulted in 57 complaints to the Public Service Commission and approximately 2,000 hours of rework. So the pain is very, very clear here. So it is a well-defined problem statement, specific and direct, clearly brings out the magnitude of the problem and the consequences to the business, right? So time is there, impact is there, how often, where, and then what sort of has in this outage, what happened? This has resulted in so many complaints and so many hours of rework. So this is something which you need to sort of practice, and then only I think it will come. Whenever you write a first problem statement, naturally you will not be able to do this immediately. It has to be a practice, and you also have to be guided by someone, right? When you are writing your problem statements. Another problem statement example, our customers are not happy with the delay in monthly credit card account statement mailing. Then, in the last 3 months, 26% of the monthly credit card account statement were delayed by 10 or more days, due to which businesses had to waive off so many dollars in late fee charges. Right? So it has, again, quite specific, quite direct, bringing out the pain, right? Magnitude of the pain, so much of waive off, huge waive off. Then we move on to a goal statement, right? Includes definition of the improvement, direction of change, reduce, eliminate, increase, whatever is sort of applicable, variable of the interest, time, errors, cost, what is applicable, again, target. Does not include blame, presumed cause, or presumed solution, right? So I think it is making it again very clear. no cause or no solution is to be given in the goal statement, right? Even no blame game that the other department or this department or the vendor or the XYZ did this and that is why it happened. That cannot be given as part of the goal statement. We are looking for the improvement, in which direction, in what type, and then what is your target. So goal statement, we tend to reduce the number of delayed credit cards. We intend to reduce the number of delayed credit card statement. Okay. So it's not a good goal statement. What is a good goal statement? Reduce the percentage of the delayed monthly credit card account statement from 26% to 2% by some date. So there has to be some bit of data. You can pick it up from this, your problem statement. So your problem statement had this. In the last 3 months, 26% of the monthly credit card account statement were delayed by 10, right? So what is your goal statement? Goal statement is that the percentage of delayed monthly credit card statement you will reduce from this percentage to this percentage by a deadline, by a time.
Sorry for the interruption, sir. We are having one question in the chat box.
Yeah.
That Mr. Sachin wanted to ask how we know about the magnitude or a frequency, and all the participants here requested you can please ask the question in the audio video mode, because once the presenter are on the full screen, they are not able to see this chat box. So if you are having any question, you can ask through your audio video mode.
Yeah, okay. So just repeat the question. So it is about what is the...
How we know about the magnitude or a frequency?
Right. So to understand the magnitude and the frequency, I had mentioned to you, do you have data? So if you do not have data, then you need to start collecting the data, and then maybe put it here that and then maybe mention here that in the last 3 months, right, baseline and its period, since you started collecting, so you can say that we collected data for the last 2 months or 3 months, and this is what we have found. So that is your baseline data. You have to collect data, and from the magnitude is what is that you are hearing from your customer, what is that you are hearing from your internal customer, or what is that you are hearing from your stakeholders. That will also give an idea of the magnitude. So both ways you will have to understand, right? Customer complaints, external, internal view, and also you need to have some data. If you have data, but it is not well maintained, then please start maintaining the data. Please start stratifying the data better. Or if there's absolutely no data, please start collecting the data, do it for 2 to 3 months, and then you are ready to sort of create a problem statement. Does that answer? Whoever asked that question?
Mr. Sachin, you may please give the answer. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, fine. Yeah. So because since I am not able to see the chat, this is a bit different. I'm not able to see the chat, so I think you can ask me. I think that should be absolutely okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Yeah. So the problem statement and a goal statement example. Okay. So you can see in the last 6 months, in the last 3 months, right? So there has to be some data or inputs. And if you, as again I have said, you may have data, but then it may not be there in a form where you can write this statement. So work on that data and create this sort of statement, right? In the last 6 months, 20% of our repeat customers, not first-time users, are over 60 days late paying our invoices. The current rate of late payments is up from 10% in 2020 and represents 30% of our outstanding variables. This negatively affects our operating cash flow. So a lot of inputs are there. current, this 20% of our repeat customers. What is the goal statement? Reduce the percentage of repeat customers who are over 60 days late paying our invoices from this percentage to this percentage by a target date. Right? Any questions? Anybody?
Anybody? Sir, no in the chat box.
Okay, fine. Then it also talks of the potential result analysis. Okay. So it is again broken down into what elements it is there, right? So what is the expected improvement? Suppose reduce errors in processing. What is the benefit of the improvement? Less time spent fixing errors, able to speed up flow of work. What is the business impact? 5% increase in monthly revenues. So similarly, we have to work and provide these elements also. Increase on-time delivery from 80% to 90%, right? What is the benefit? Increase in customer satisfaction, increase customer retention. Okay. Now, this is also has to be measured. This is again broadly written. And then at the end of your project, you need to get this business impact. 20% increase in turnover and with a figure. Suppose you are reducing product defects in half, right? There's a lot of rework happening and you are reducing it in half. So what is the improvement? Reduce scrap, less time needed to rework. And what is the business impact? Reduce material cost by 25%, increase capacity by 17% with the annual savings. This annual savings has to be ratified from your finance department. All these dollar figures has to be ratified by your finance department. You can write an initial figure, but the final figure you will have to work with your finance department. Right? So are you getting the flow? Even when working on the project charter, you are actually thinking and giving some statements on the current situation, and you have also started thinking on the improvement and the impact which the project will lead to. So that is what you are happening. So that is why the defined phase is quite important, because one is that with your current data, current complaints, current dissatisfaction, you have started a project. The project is linked to the big why. The project is linked to the strategy, to the business areas. It is important for the organization. Senior leadership and champions have ratified that. They feel it is an important project. And then you have started working on the definition and you are getting into the problem statement, goal statement, and finally into the benefits. So I think I will stop here, right? I will stop here. I will not move on to the subsequent elements of the defined phase. I think we'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow also the defined phase continues, right? We may get into some exercise also tomorrow. So I will stop my sharing, and then maybe I think it would be good if you ask some questions, and then I think that can be good. Yeah. Or maybe I can ask some questions. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
I have a few doubts, sir. So in Six Sigma process, the DPMO is 3.4.
Right.
As you said earlier, in the nuclear industry and airline industry, and they're maintaining 8 or 9 Sigma level. So for these kind of industry, what will be the DPMO level, sir?
That is you will get it in the there is a DPMO table. So I think which I need to search, and maybe I can share it with you.
Yeah, in the table, they are provided only up to 6 Sigma level, that 3.4. Beyond the 3.4, they didn't mention. I also searched in it.
Okay, yeah. So I think then it goes into what would happen is that it would be what? It would be in point something per million opportunities.
Yeah.
It is rarity in the sense that it would be, say, 1 per the million opportunities or 0.5, so it will be that less. Six Sigma itself is only 3.4, and then that
Okay.
means it sort of gets down into 1.5, so that low.
Okay. Thank you, sir. This session was very informative. Thank you so much, sir.
Any questions?
Participants, you can ask questions now.
Yeah.
The chat box. In chat box, there is no question.
Okay. Yeah. So I think yeah. Any questions
Yeah.
on maybe I can ask somebody, and then what were one or two key takeaways from this session? Yeah. If you're not asking, then maybe I should ask. Yeah.
The participants,
General,
there is a question for you.
Yeah.
The first key takeaway, as far as I am concerned, is how to define a problem.
Right.
And the second thing is do's and don'ts of defining a problem statement.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very good.
and added to
one of the takeaway for
the value.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think
proceed.
Yeah, one of the major takeaway for me, as we are introducing this particular subject with the title as Lean Six Sigma and Quality Management as an elective for our college.
Okay.
And through this FDP, of course, this particular lecture session as well, helping me to understand the way in which it has to be delivered.
Right. Because a lot of organizational elements are important. Yeah.
That's a very important input for me and learning for me as well.
Right. Okay. Good.
Thanks for your such an informative session, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I think Dr. Prabhu, you were saying something. Dr. Senthil, yeah.
Yes, sir. As far as my concern, that mystery has been cleared about the Six Sigma. In defined phase, a lot of doubt was there before attending this course.
Okay.
This session, now it's cleared. So I got some financial oriented knowledge like EBITDA, likewise the terminology I have learned. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir will be there with us tomorrow also, because defined phase is continue. This is phase 1, but tomorrow also there will be one session of sir.
Yeah, there are a lot of.
Now I'm thankful to Majumdar sir for such an informative session, and thank you for delivering such useful information to our participants. So on behalf of participants, I am thankful to you, sir, and you can leave, sir, now. And for participants, I want to say something. Our next session, due to our next speaker is from Morocco, so to match with the Indian Standard Time, the next session is organized at 3:30. So please join the third session of this day, last session of this day, at 3:30 p.m. Thank you. And one more request to all. We have already added all the participants in our Meet guest list, but still some participants require permission to enter into the Meet, because they may try to join through some other Gmail account or email account which is not registered with Atal FDP. So please consult it yourself that through which Gmail account or other email account you are trying to join. Otherwise, you no need to get a permission to join the session. Please. Okay. So thank you. You can leave, sir. We will meet at 3:30. Everyone. Thank you.